Hello and welcome to the Point Forward podcast, Milwaukee Bucks chatter from the Milwaukee Journal Sentinel. My name is JR Radcliffe. I am joined by my colleague at the Journal Sentinel, Bucks reporter Jim Owczarski. The Milwaukee Bucks have started out quite nicely. They've won 3 of their first 4 games. Giannis Antetokounmpo playing at an MVP level, doing it on national TV against the New York Knicks on NBC. Mike Tirico and friends, Round Ball Rock. Jim Owczarski, do you have that connection that a lot of people seem to have with the music known as Round Ball Rock, the John Tesh Jam, when it fires up on NBC? Does that hit you in the feels the way it does for so many NBA people?
I mean, 1,000%. I'm an 80s baby from Chicago. JR. I grew up on the GOAT, and there was no maybe more synonymous song with the Chicago Bulls in that era for me, other than the intro at Chicago Stadium and United Center, which they still use for the players. Yes. So like without a doubt, as a basketball fan and watcher, like to see NBC back and them doing the right thing, which was just hey, no need to reinvent the wheel. Maybe do different stuff in the studios or whatever, but like that thing, just bring it back.
I am enjoying NBC's early coverage. The big downside to the NBA's national footprint this year is that it's basically on, 8 different channels, including streaming services. Like, you really don't know where to find NBA on a given night. There's literally a rubric that has gone around. It's really just a schedule, but it's like, man, there's so many different channels involved. But I do enjoy. I don't have a problem with the Jamal Crawford, Reggie Miller setup, and Mike Tirico, of course, is pretty dang good. And throw in that jingle, and I'm all about it. The Milwaukee Bucks defeating the New York Knicks by 10 points on Tuesday night. That was the highlight of I think, a really good start. And as we closed the last podcast, we talked about how this thing devolves quickly if the Bucks don't start quickly, how the chorus of when is Giannis going to leave Milwaukee, that gets awful loud if the Bucks start out struggling, especially if they lose to the Knicks. I mean, it's obviously not one game that really matters here, but the Knicks are this team that's kind of moved in as the place that Giannis would theoretically go to if the Bucks ever decided to move him, if Giannis decided he wanted to be moved, if all the pieces could be put together. New York is kind of the destination everyone has zoomed in on. But then he plays very well. He defeats, helps to defeat New York, certainly, declares this is my city in a fairly triumphant moment. Feels like that's pushed back the volume a little bit, at least for now. In this game or others, the fast start, kind of what has enabled the Bucks to do that? What are some things that are jumping out at you? And, all of it, the temperature on where you are with Giannis, now that you've seen Milwaukee start out fast and look like a team that could actually, do some things this season.
Yeah. I mean, the fast start is key, JR. I mean, I know new team, new players, new year. The Bucks did not win their 3rd game until mid-November last year.
Oh man, I forgot all about that. What a nightmare that was.
And look, man, whatever. We're recording this. Maybe when people dial this up in a couple days or next week, they're 3-3. But they've won some games. They've won 3 out of 4. Giannis has been pretty sternly vocal, or vocally stern, whatever, however you want to phrase it, about this team. Beginning in the preseason, saying we're not good enough to play isolation basketball, to kind of go one-on-one, to not move the ball. Says we're not a good team that way. Pretty. I mean, people could read that in certain ways, right? They could say, oh, that's him sort of taking shots at the talent or whatever. He comes out after the Cleveland loss and says, we could say we were down three rotation players. But that's not an excuse anymore. Like that, we can't be that team, which I think is in reference to the last few years with this Bucks squad, right? Like, oh, what if so-and-so is healthy? What if so-and-so was here? Oh, let's just wait till they're healthy. And then the third thing was after Cleveland was him just sort of saying good teams don't lose 2 in a row, which, I mean, I guess I'd have to look. I mean, if you're winning 62 games, you're probably not dropping 2 or 3 in a row. But for him to just sort of put that out there and then the team to respond and sort of do all these things, do all the things to win, to get 3 of 4 early to beat a Knicks team that just waxed them last year, JR. Like they had no shot against the Knicks last season. Yeah, it's a good start. It was needed, I think, in a lot of ways, to proof of concept for Giannis, for Doc Rivers, for all of the players. It's one Doc said this. He's like, look, the guys are bought in now, but what happens when lineups change, or if we do, like, winning helps all of that, right? It emphasizes the buy-in, and what they're doing is correct, and winning is the only way to truly cement that, and that's starting to happen. I don't look 3 games, JR, 3 out of 4, so the cement isn't set, right? But they're starting to pour it a little bit here through the end of I would say end of November, JR, would be if it sets, right? So good start. Giannis pretty emphatic, so like emphatic up until this New York game, JR, with sort of these things people can read into as maybe negatives, or how does he feel about this team? Well, he ends the New York presser saying, this team is built to win. He loves what he's seeing. And there are guys who are playing unselfishly, which sort of motivates him to do the right thing as well. So we'll see. I mean, Golden State will be a good test, and then they've got some games coming up in early November where they should have some advantages, JR. So, yeah, we'll get to the Knicks stuff in terms of the external. But, the Knicks are maybe going through it on their own with the new head coach. However, they're the Knicks right now. They were a 51-win team, conference favorites right now, and the Bucks came down, 14, and then won fairly handily down the stretch. And that was not getting up a ton of threes with a starter missing. So, yeah, JR, I think a very, very good start for the Bucks. Not perfect, obviously, but a very good one.
Yeah, I mean the missing Porter, like you said, with the starter missing, makes this feel even better. They had him for just a few minutes in one game, and even in that loss to Cleveland, I mean, you could argue that they probably should win a game against Cleveland, missing its own share of players, but it's on the road and it was well played. They fought, they were down there in the end, which moral victories are not really where this franchise has been for quite some time. But then you come back and you beat the Knicks, a team that throttled them last year, like you said. Here's a name I didn't expect to talk about very early on in this podcast, but you were talking about buy-in and lineups. Kyle Kuzma, who went down with, I thought, a pretty bad-looking injury and came back to play almost instantly, in the next game, and has looked really good this year. And I mean, I think he wasn't good last year, and maybe there's a question about how much he even fits on this team, even still going forward. But if he is contributing, that's an element that I think a lot of people probably didn't count on. It's more like, well, whatever you get from Kyle Kuzma is icing on the cake, and they're getting it from him thus far. Is that a buy-in thing? Is that something changed that enabled him to be more of greater service? I mean, I know he's kind of, he was sort of Giannis's de facto backup there for a split second before he himself got hurt. But what do you think when you see him? Is this a different Kyle Kuzma than what we saw last year?
Yeah, I think, JR, the difference is he's in the right role. And this is sort of, I think, the issue with NBA trade deadline stuff. I don't know. I'm sure a listener or fan could reach out to us and tell me the last time a team made like major roster moves at a deadline and had it actually pay off to any degree. And trading Chris Middleton is a major move for the Bucks, right? And so Kuzma just kind of came into a situation where he was replacing a legend whose position was fairly defined. Like, Chris was the small forward. Kyle gets here and is not a small forward, at least not in the way that Chris is, and is not a small forward in the way that Bucks team needed a small forward to be. Kyle's not a catch and shoot three-point shooter. He can do some different things defensively, but the way he needs to play offense just was not a match. And he was just sort of shoehorned in as a starter. And clearly we know where that went. So the offseason was big because John Horst made it pretty clear, like, Kyle at the power forward spot is probably his best fit, which of course means he must be coming off the bench. And so it was Doc going to do it, and was Kyle going to buy into it? And maybe fans could say players don't have a choice, but they kind of do. If a guy isn't happy or whatever, like, you're going to know it pretty quick. And, Kyle has excelled in that 6-man power forward playmaking role off the bench. You're right. It was just a small sample size because with Porter going down, it shifted things up. Right. And then Kyle gets hurt in Toronto, misses the game in Cleveland, which they felt that impact. Comes in JR and defends Karl Anthony Towns in the post, and like Kyle's 6'10", Cat's 6'11". They're built differently, but the 6'10" matters, and he, went down there and really put together. There's like 3 or 4 defensive possessions in a row, effectively stopping Karl Towns, which is, no small thing, and was very important for the Bucks to win. His ankle, JR, pregame, left ankle was visibly swollen. Like when he was sort of open locker room, so I'm not violating anything there. I was in there during our required period, and so he's not like totally healthy, but he had said, look, if I could play, I want to. And he felt he was at a spot where he wasn't going to hurt himself anymore. I don't think we saw him at his full capabilities offensively against the Knicks, but honestly, with the way Ryan Rollins played, they didn't really need that. So, but defensively they did. And I mean, here we are talking about Kyle Kuzma's interior defense in Game 4, JR. Like that was, that was not on my bingo card either.
Yeah.
And if that's the type of effort the Bucks are going to see from Kyle throughout the year in these various situations, I mean, I'm sure all John Horst envisioned or could have hoped for when they made the trade last year, and then when they were retooling this thing in the summer.
As far as the guy who is the second offensive option when Giannis isn't, aside from Giannis, you've got a different guy each game. It's Gary Trent, it's AJ Green, it's Ryan Rollins, it's Cole Anthony. Hello, Cole Anthony? Cole Mello is how I'm referring to him from now on. What does that say about the Bucks, if anything? Because I think, existentially, you could read that into, well, they're going to need somebody to rise up, and maybe this is Kevin Porter eventually, to just be that next guy after Giannis. Or you could say they don't need somebody to be the next guy after Giannis. They can spread this around, and somebody is going to get hot every night in that group. I don't know if I feel strongly about the latter there. Like, I don't know if somebody's going to get hot in that group every night. It's kind of an interesting collection of, undrafted guys and players who are kind of coming into their own, but aren't necessarily stars in this league. What does that mean anything to you, that it's a different guy every night behind Giannis?
No, because they built it this way, JR, right? Like this was the gamble, so to speak, about retooling this around Giannis this year and in this way. And which, of course, has caused all the sort of the off-court consternation. And quite frankly, clearly even Giannis wasn't quite sure about this over the summer, right? But John Horst leaned back into, in my opinion, that 2018 version of the Bucks. There were no all-stars heading into the 18-19 season, JR. I mean, Chris came off a 20-point-a-game season. We could argue maybe he was a snub in 17-18, or maybe you could say, no, like we felt he was on that level or there, but there were no all-stars. Who was Brooke Lopez and Pat Connaughton? Who are these guys? Who are these role players from Portland and LA, right?
Oh, that's a really good point.
Is Eric Bledsoe a true number 2? Can he defend at the highest of levels, right? Is he a winner?
No, you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right.
And
same vibes.
You get right. And so now Chris obviously separated himself, clearly, borderline Hall of Famer. But I think before that we only know that now. And so they lean back into that. And while my basketball, my history watching basketball, JR, is that in the playoffs, they're going to need a number 2. That I just feel like that's where the game is. That's how champions are made. Even though there's been 7 different ones, all 7 had a clear star and a clear other guy who could get buckets. So that's what I'm leaning on. But, you look at Indiana last year, JR. I mean, on any given night, it was Halliburton, Pascal Siakam, Miles Turner, their 3 best players, but it was Aaron Nesmith, right? It was Nembhard going crazy. There was the TJ McConnell game. Like, when the Bucks won the title, we talk about this, JR, like Miami was the Bryn Forbes series. We never saw Bryn Forbes again after that, right? But it didn't matter. You had your constants, but then you had the role players kind of do their thing. So I think, JR, like, I still think they'll to get to the finals or win a finals this year, they'll need someone other than Giannis to get a bucket. But that's a May and June question. I think for now, these try-hard guys, JR, the Bucks are a try-hard team. How about that, right? We wondered if they would be, and they are. They're a try-hard team. And I think when you're a try-hard team, you can have 5 different guys in double figures and win the game.
Never forget that Bryn Forbes scored 62 points in that series against the Miami Heat. Jimmy Butler scored 60 to 58 in favor of Bryn Forbes. What a stat. What a moment in time. Shouts to Bryn Forbes wherever you are. The Giannis stuff that bubbled up, came to the surface again with the Knicks in town. I do want to talk about that. Let's start actually with something that's been floating around the internet that I wrote about at jsonline.com. That's a little more funnier than the trade rumors and stuff. The traveling in the first half, Giannis, both Reggie Miller and Jamal Crawford were apoplectic on the NBC broadcast because Giannis seemingly got like 6 steps before he put up a shot and that went in. He is a man who has the Euro step. I was trying to emphasize the Greek alternate spelling of that. Gyro.
Yeah, that never caught on.
That never caught on. It should have. Much like, Ted Davis, shouts to Ted Davis, tried to make like the alphabet a thing. It just did not work. I mean, Ted Davis is a guy who can make things, but that just didn't catch on. I looked at it. It's a travel, but it's like not as much of a travel as you think because of the way that he gathers the basketball. There's just so much leeway NBA stars have when they gather the basketball. They get 2 steps at that point. And the question for referees is, when is the gathering done? When do they complete the process of the gather? So, Jim, I want to ask you, what is even traveling in the NBA? And does it apply to Giannis Antetokounmpo, or is he just free to do what he pleases?
What is traveling? That's a great question. I covered the game, JR. I was at Lambeau when Des Bryant caught the ball, and he did catch it because
according to rules now, but not according to rules then.
Exactly right, which is just wild. Look, the gather is interesting because it allows, if the ball is spinning and moving and not in your possession, it allows you to kind of just move your feet until that happens. And, this particular play, I think Giannis did travel, but in real time, in real speed, like, no, the officials are not watching it in that slow motion. He moves at an incredible rate. And look, players like him are going to get the benefit of the doubt. He is the master. I don't know whose Euro step is better than his. His Euro step takes up like 9 feet or something like that. So right, like everything about what he does is extra large, and that means the gather feels like he's moving 30 feet in a gather and then another 25 feet in 2 steps. So in super slow-mo, JR, it looks like a travel, but I think when you have proven you can go from half court to the rim in 2 dribbles or 1, right? What was the famous one? One dribble, 2, like they're just gonna say that was close enough. Let them talk.
Yes, they are. Do the best they can. Do the best you can. This strikes me another rule that you before we got on, you mentioned the Brewers. How we're doing Bucks podcast because Brewer season's over, which is true. The Brewers had this crazy play in the playoffs where Sal Frelick went up for a ball and it hit his glove, and then he bobbled it, and the runner was confused, thinking he had to go back to third base to tag until the ball was secured. In baseball, once the ball touches your glove, it's you can advance as a runner, preventing a fielder from just bobbling the baseball and keeping you at third base until you're ready to secure it. I feel like there might need to be something in basketball along those lines, like like Giannis could just like bobble it back and forth between himself as he runs the length of the floor and dunks it down. Of course, that would still be called. That's not technically true, but it feels like there's way too much wiggle room, which is fine for Bucks fans because nobody exploits that better than Giannis Antetokounmpo. Speaking of slow-mo, I was trying to get a sense of what he said there late in the game, where he had a really nice highlight reel dunk that essentially clinched the game. We know that he said, "This is my city," and then he said some words after that. And I was trying to capture that after the game, trying to figure out what exactly he was saying. He was asked about that after the game. Because it does relate to kind of the broader story of is there still some lingering discontent or a lingering idea that he might want to go somewhere else, with New York being the obvious somewhere else, at least right now. And he kind of explained his words as just kind of emotional in the moment, not necessarily a broader thesis statement. And I agree, that's probably what it was. It wasn't like, I'm going to stay here for the rest of my life. I promise I'll sign right now after this dunk. But like it's still lingering. And I thought his answer was kind of not combative, but like he really wanted to shoot down the New York thing. And I don't think that speaks to anything other than he just doesn't want to deal with it right now. But he did sort of draw a line here. Like, this is not interesting to me. I'm not interested in the New York stuff. I'm interested in winning current basketball games and chasing my children around and putting up with the life of a dad with 4 kids. Did that seem genuine to you? Is that kind of how you interpret Giannis's position at this point, and that he really isn't thinking about what could become to come for the rest of his career, that he really has put this to bed for now?
Yeah. That's the for now point. And, so just to remind everyone, just the timeline, I think, is important. So October 7th is when ESPN reported there was a, I guess, superficial conversation between the Bucks and Knicks back in August. So on August 8th, Giannis Antetokounmpo came down the stairs at the practice facility to address this directly. Felt he needed to the media, to the fans, but also to his teammates. Understanding saying something behind closed doors is not the same as getting in front of a microphone and a camera. And he admitted, jsonline.com, feel free to go check this back out. He admitted, hey, it's the off season. Between the last game and the first game, there's temptation. You're looking around. People are telling you where to be, what to look at. People are calling his agents. And so he's like, but that's in that time. And then once the season starts, he is, in this case, playing for the Milwaukee Bucks. And he sort of made this line, JR, where he said, you guys will write it. And he pointed to us, a couple beat writers, and said, this is the end of it, which is cute. Because it's right. Because he is someone who, says a lot of things. And generally speaking, the only things that he says that are sort of picked up and metastasized across the country are, not his loyalty to Milwaukee or why he likes to be here or any of that stuff. It's sort of the other qualifiers, right? Or things when he says, like he wants new challenges and looks for challenges, etc. So cute that. So locally, it sort of was the end of it. Like there's no reason for me, JR, to continue to ask him about something in August, right? When they're playing basketball games. Well, the New York Knicks are in town. So is the traveling New York media. A camera came to shoot around just in case Giannis would talk.
They got Mark Sears.
Giannis doesn't talk at shoot around. Yeah, they got rookie Mark Spears, wasn't active later that night. But just in case, right? And then Knicks writers were in his press conference and asked about playing for the Knicks. And so, he handled it. I was curious how he would handle it, JR. I'll be honest. Like, I thought, would he be, I don't want to say grumpy, but maybe just say, I've addressed this already, or I'm not doing this again. I said it, or, and just like at that, it's not like they grilled him. He effectively got 2 direct questions on the trade report and one sort of tangential one about, was there motivation or extra about the Knicks? And he took that to be, the Knicks beat our ass last year. And so, yeah, like I wanted to beat him this year.
For sure.
But he used it. You mentioned his kids. He kind of diffused it in his normal Giannis way with humor, and so he kind of, I think, probably handled it the right way to not, continue to make it a story. I think if he would have been sort of angry about it or like overtly dismissive or overly dismissive, maybe that adds to a story like, doth protest too much type of thing. So, yeah, I think it's over again until next month when the Knicks are back in town and more Knicks media are in town. Who knows if the Bucks are, 10-4 at that point. Maybe he gets like one more question about it. If the Bucks are 7-7, or in the midst of a 6-game losing streak, I think that he'll get more questions about it. So, yeah, I think he. So it's never going to go away. Like it's a thing now that's just out there. And really, the only way it totally dissipates is, I don't know how
when he signs the offseason.
Next October. That would be when it finally goes away, which is like just over 12 months from now. So, yeah, like the Bucks winning a bunch of games, maybe beating the Knicks again at home in a pivotal NBA Cup pool play game just after Thanksgiving, JR, huge game ramifications. I think it's going to just sort of linger out there because it's just what it is. I mean, that network hasn't really added any new reporting, but they've written again on how his relationship is teetering and spoken again about how certain circumstances could have gotten him to New York, and he's not going to be satisfied with moral victories, and he's not satisfied that his youngest brother is on the team. Like all these things that's just going to be there now. And so, but at least for now, at least for a few weeks, it'll kind of die down a little bit.
Kind of looking for some speculation here and sort of intrinsic to what you're talking about. Why sometimes we look at ESPN and blame them for being just heavily obsessed with this story or other national outlets. And sometimes I think part of that is you look at Nikola Jokic, who's a player in a similar stage of his career, and wonder why are there not constant rumors around Jokic leaving Denver? And part of that is, and we've said this before, because he doesn't entertain this stuff. He doesn't dabble in it. He's never. He just does not engage with the idea of leaving. And I guarantee you one day he's not guarantee, but like in my mind, he's just going to one day like say I'm out and nobody will have seen it coming. And he's just like, I'm getting traded. I demand a trade or he will be traded. He'll be like, yeah, this is what I wanted. I don't know. Like he just doesn't publicly deal with this. And I'm not saying Giannis is publicly, stoking these flames, but I do think okay. I mean, that's kind of what I was going for. Like if Giannis wanted this to be over, it would be over. It would be dead. And so I guess I wonder, like, could he, does he still have control of the story? Could he tomorrow be like, look, guys, I'm going to spend the rest of my career in Milwaukee, or I plan to spend the rest of my career. I don't even want to hear about it anymore. It's not happening. I'm not going to New York. I'm not going to any of these teams. I'm a Milwaukee Buck for life. I mean, he could end it right now.
Yes. And that's, I mean, the reason this, again, we did kind of a timeline on this, JR. I mean, he's been saying some version of playing elsewhere since 2018. Even in the short window between the title, I mean, even when they won the championship, right? Like he was like, well, I might need another challenge. Like I don't want to say he can't help himself, but that's just clearly how he thinks. And actions over words, though. He has signed, I believe, 3 contract extensions in Milwaukee. So he has said all of these things all the time, all the time for 7 years. And so that's what stokes it. And I don't think at this stage either, JR, he would pivot and go back on his own word, right? Like, I think it would be the action. It's the action of signing in another extension, which would be 12 months from now. And so, yeah, like, I can almost guarantee this, JR. Like, even if the Bucks go to the finals and lose to the Thunder, and he wins MVP because he like dragged this team to the finals, you know, like Jokic style 3 years ago or whatever it is, I can guarantee you what are we going to hear in July? Well, Bucks better go into the luxury tax. John Horst better trade a couple first rounders for, you know, because the Thunder swept the Bucks and they were missing a number 2 scorer. And, you know, like, I can guarantee you, even if they go to the finals, we're going to hear it. And so, and part of that is because the Bucks are kind of jammed up with a calendar here, are totally artificial from the league. He can't sign an extension until October. A weird vagary of the pandemic, like, because of the 2020 stoppage and reschedule, like, he can't sign in October. Every other superstar can sign in July. So, and the league won't change it. It's totally arbitrary. It was this weird, once in a, you know, millennia global thing, and the league's like, that matters still. And so the Bucks are always going to have the screws twisted on him because he can't sign in July like everyone else. So, I mean, like, I can almost guarantee it. Like, he's not at that stage in his career yet, JR, where he's going to, because what that turns into is, for 9 years, Giannis, you have said you want the Bucks to do anything and everything possible to win. You want to win, win, win. And now you say, wow, winning doesn't matter as much anymore. Like, he's just not going to do that. And that's not just like a PR thing. Although it would be sort of a reversal of his PR image, if we want to call it that. He's just not built that way. So, yeah, he could stop it. You know, Jokic didn't sign his extension. There was some like rumbles there, and he said, you know, not right now. And it makes financial sense for Joker to sign next summer, not this summer. Makes more money. But then Joker added, I plan on being a Nugget for life.
Yeah.
And then that was it. Now, if Giannis says, I plan on being a Buck for life, it's like, well, plans change. Like, it's 7 months. So, like, you know, he's helped create this. And so this is just the difference that JR now is another team was connected to him, which ramps this up even more. Like, before was sort of ethereal. He could go. Teams are monitoring. Teams are dreaming. Teams wishing. They're hoping. They're lining up assets. But, you know, when you add the like if it was the Kings doing this, JR, like, I don't know if anybody, like, I don't even know if we're still talking about this. But, like, it was the Knicks. And so that added a little extra level to it. But he's just not. Actions over words. This will end, in October next year when he signs an extension. You know, should the team reach whatever level he's happy with. And, you know, to loop it back to the beginning, JR, they're a try-hard team. They're a go-hard team. Down a starter, still 3-1. You know, almost beat the Cavs, down 3 rotation players. Like, they might be good. They might be really good. And you know, he feels they're on the ascent.
He had 33 and 20 against Toronto earlier this week. That's crazy. He had he only had one double digit category against the Knicks. I mean, what was wrong with him? He with a tremendous stat line. I mean, 4 games obviously is early to start talking MVP race, and yet, I mean, that's what he's done so far. He has put himself in the early running for in the conversation with the way that he has played.
Yeah, and I think what's important, JR, is 33 minutes a game. Like,
efficiency.
Doc bristled at us asking about keeping Giannis around 32, 33 at the start of the year. Because of course, and I get it, like a coach doesn't want to just put that out there, but pretty clear. They don't want to play more than 33 to get it going. And that's what they're doing. And they're riding with the bench unit. That bench let go of the rope a little bit against the Knicks in the first half, a little bit against Cleveland. That's where you see the lack of, like, the Porter Rollins thing. That's an issue because Ryan Rollins now clearly will help anchor that second unit when Porter's back. But 33 minutes a game, JR, goes back to that 18 season. Now the difference is those 18 Bucks just smashed everybody. So Giannis was playing 32 minutes because they were winning by 25, right? He's still putting in like high intensity, high leverage minutes right now, but I don't think it's a small thing that he's making NBA history here. Let me look at this. First player in NBA history to 140, 50, and 20 through first 4 games. The first to have, join Chamberlain, Pettit, and Bellamy with shooting 78% over 2 games. Like, I mean, first guy with 60, 30, 10 after 2 games. Like, look, I mean, I know Wemby's doing some stuff. I think Tyrese Maxey's doing first thing in history starts. Like, the league, sort of like passing yardage in football, JR, where, like, what do these numbers really mean? But, anytime, like, Wilt's in the conversation, that's a pretty cool thing. And he's playing at an incredibly high level with 33 minutes, which is important because they need him to play 70 games if they can. And, if he can play 70 games, JR, that'd be like, wow. He's done it one time in 7 years and then got hurt, right? And missed the playoffs 2 years ago. Yeah. So, if they can, and he's doing it so easily, JR, like he's taking some hard falls like he's apt to, but you're not feeling like he's breaking the offense by doing it more, creating more offense with some of these assist numbers. So yeah, it's pretty impressive.
Let's talk about Ryan Rollins before we get out of here. When it comes to guys who are undrafted or second round draft picks, guys who went to small colleges, it takes me a long time before I'm like a believer. This speaks to me more than anything else. It just, like, Ryan Rollins seemed like a nice story. Maybe he could contribute a little bit. And they gave him a contract, 3 years, $12 million. I mean, that's not a huge commitment. It seems like, okay, well, good. He got paid. Nice story. I'm starting to think maybe he's like not just a nice story, that he's legitimately a dude. And you said this on the last podcast. It kind of needs to be. I mean, they kind of need him to be more than just a nice story or a guy who's coming off the bench, off the fringes. But he's confident. Holy smokes, is he confident? And he is making some plays on the scale of like how cool, how good is this? Like, is this a little bit over his skis? Is he going to come back down to earth a little bit, or like is Ryan Rollins legitimately a dude?
No, I think 4 games is, like Giannis said, oh, come on, only 4 games. Let's hold the compliments. Too early for compliments. If he goes, like, he's a young player. There'll be more film on him.
Wow, good point. Yeah.
I'm sure he'll run into a wall here at some point. His first full season playing, 30 minutes a game. But that said, because that's just the nature of the game, I do think he's a real dude because 6'4" is real, 7-foot wingspan is real, the athleticism is real, and to your point, the mentality, he's not afraid, and he's not afraid, and he's not stubborn in his belief in himself. Meaning, we have seen him get better, JR, each game. Like, it's 4 games, but he's better today heading into this Golden State game than he was against Washington. And he's better against Washington than he was in the second preseason game against Detroit. Like, that's remarkable to see that quickly, a player go through some issues. He talks about it, his teammates talk about it, the coach talks about it, and then corrects it. And then is better at it. I think the times when, Jalen Brunson goes at him, draws a foul, and then Ryan wants to go right back at Jalen Brunson and falls down. I don't know if that'll ever go away. I think there's a competitive fire to him that those moments are probably going to crop up. But I only recall that happening once against the Knicks, whereas against Washington, he was going back and forth with Bub Carrington far too often. And then it was yeah, he can't do that anymore. And he is better at it, a couple of days later. He is right now. Let's go. If JR can be a doomer, let's put on the overhyped hat. He right now is trending in the Dyson Daniels, trajectory right here. Dyson Daniels last year for the Hawks, kind of, I think people, oh, nice player. And then all of a sudden here's this big rangy dude, a lot of steals, locking people up. And, Dyson Daniels signs a $100 million deal this offseason, right? Ryan Rollins is leading the league in steals in 4 games, second in deflections through 4 games. Finally made some threes last night. That shot hadn't gone in his first 3, but, he can finish above the rim, can get to the basket, can beat guys off the bounce. That's the question, JR. Sometimes when you look at a second rounder, an undrafted guy, you're like, okay, well, where's the flaw maybe in the offensive or defensive game that shows why they were drafted where they were? AJ Green's not beating anybody off the bounce. You know what I mean? Maybe he could turn, maybe he could turn a corner a little bit and get to a mid-range. We've seen that, but Ryan Rollins is going to turn you around and dunk on your face. And that's, and if he's going to play defense at that kind of level, JR, it's a find. He's a revelation. I think they hoped for this, but Porter being out is allowing for this growth. And when Porter's back and Ryan slips back into that backup role, that's a huge thing. JR, I mean, that was a huge question with this lineup, right? The non-Giannis minutes, big deal. John Horst concerned about it. Doc was concerned about it. Bobby, Bobby can go off. Is Kyle going to be this guy? What's that going to look like? Who else can score? And now you're 4 games in, JR, you're all right, Bobby and Ryan Rollins with a little bit of Kuzma sprint. Now you're feeling real good about them creating offense in a second unit situation, because Ryan is now a 2-level scorer, above the 3-point line at the rim, and makes all his free throws. We were kind of shocked, JR, Cavs were called for a tech with AJ Green on the floor, and Ryan Rollins went right up to the free throw line. So Ryan's that dude, you know what I mean? We just assumed AJ would shoot the free throw, right? Credit to the Bucks for finding him, developing him, for not losing him in the offseason, for giving him, a 2+1. So they're not trying to figure out how to pay him next summer. That $100 million's coming if this keeps going. So, man, huge deal for the Bucks to find this guy and for him to get these minutes, because I think Porter is already that guy. Ryan is now, giving them something I think they hope they could get, and they're getting it. And it should be, I don't know, it could really set this team up really, really well, JR, for, true depth and really helping Giannis play those 33 minutes, because you're going to feel real good about that second group.
What about December 15th? We'll get national outlets writing Ryan Rollins' story. How did this guy from Toledo, Michigan guy from Toledo, become this, low-key star with the Milwaukee Bucks? Yeah, it's coming, maybe.
Ben Steele wrote that story before the season began. Talked to his coach at Toledo, for Marquette connection in there, of course. Benny right. Buckets is always finding those angles, and we touched on Ryan again in the Gamer last night. So it's, locally, you're right. I think he's been a nice story, 2-way guy, bounced between the Wizards and Golden State, right? never really got an opportunity, and sees it. He is now, and he's seizing it now for sure.
Yeah. We're always ahead of it at jsonline.com. Jim Owczarski, Ben Steele. Before I let you go, sir, anything else? What else have you seen in these last 3 games? The Golden State Warriors will be in Milwaukee on Thursday night as the Bucks face that team's off to a 4-1 start. They're a very good team again, so that'll be a nice test for them. But what else? What else, Jim?
Break up the Bulls.
The Bulls.
I mean, look, I'll just hammer home. I'll loop it back. I'll tie the bow with how we started the pod, JR, with the good start, right? And look, we talk about this in football a lot, like with injuries, but your quarterback, star receiver, hey, you can only play the team that's in front of you when you get them. So, the Warriors are healthy, they're rested, they're a good team. But looking ahead, JR, at Indiana, like they just signed Mac McClung to a 2-way. Like nobody's healthy for the Pacers.
It's real bad.
You have to win that game.
Kings, gotta beat the Kings.
Yeah, the Kings are terrible. Like the Kings suck. Like you beat the Kings at home. You know what? I thought November 4th at Toronto was a scheduled loss, JR. Like playing the Pacers in Indiana, Miles Turner revenge game, his first game there. It's the Pacers, like all that emotional game, and then they got to get on a plane and go to Toronto. And I mean, that to me, that's a schedule loss. I'm fascinated to see how this group handles that, right? The Bull 2 days off, you get the Bulls. And look, man, the Bulls have started well. The Bucks should beat the Bulls. Like that's not a game. And then you've got, I'm going to skip one here real quick. Then you've got a home and home with Charlotte. Charlotte sucks. But those are the games, JR. Last year, you lost to Charlotte. You lost to the Bulls. You lost to Brooklyn. Like, these are try-hard wins. You get the Lakers, second night of a back-to-back at home. Again, not ideal, but you know what? No LeBron. We know that for sure. Is Luka back? I don't know. Maybe Luka's only been back a few days. Like, you're getting to mid-November with a lot of injuries. Yeah, there's some back-to-backs in there that are not ideal against Western Conference teams at Dallas. No Kyrie, whatever's going on with Anthony Davis. Cooper Flagg's a little banged up already. Like, JR, win these games. Like, that was the thing with the Bucks the last few years. They knocked on the door of 50 wins, and it was always like, well, Dame missed this game. Giannis missed these games. Giannis is not rocking with that this year. He's like, that's not how this team – I think without saying it, he's saying they leaned on that too much. Like, well, we tried hard. We gave it our best without our guys. We'll get them later. And there was never a later. And so I'm really fascinated to see them play some teams that should be below them. Toronto, Indy, Charlotte, Chicago, Sacramento should be below them, right? And then I think this Golden State and this Houston game coming up on November 9th, matinee at Fiserv Forum. Look, Houston's hurt too, JR. No Fred VanVleet. If Dorian Finney-Smith is back, he's just back. Like, beat a team, right? Beat a team that won 50 games with Kevin Durant and has this huge lineup, right? So, I don't know. I'll loop it back to that. I think it's still there for a good start, that these try-hard Bucks can beat some of these teams. And we're not even getting to the end of November where there's some other matchup, advantages with some injuries there. So I don't know. I think 3-1 is good. There's more there, and let's see if they can go get that more, JR. And whatever that looks like, however it looks like, I feel like it's there. Like you see it, you're like, wow, okay, they're not going to give up. They're going to run around and try hard. And that wins you a lot of games in the regular season. It's there for them. Can they capitalize? That's really what I'm looking for. And I don't know. If they do, it could mean a lot. It could mean a ton for them going forward.
He is Jim Owczarski. He's predicting the Bucks will go undefeated through Thanksgiving. And you can find everything he has. Just kidding. At jsonline.com. Ben Steele, our colleague, he's at a lot of these Bucks games as well. Lori Nickel, our columnist. The Bucks will face off with the Golden State Warriors on Thursday. Jim, thanks for joining us. We'll chat with you again very soon.
Yeah, man. It's fun.